Welcome to Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio News Talk, 1180 for the best in Saturday Talk Radio at 1 o'clock, and on 1230 KGEO at 10 o'clock Saturday, and for the absolute best in Wednesday Talk Radio on 1410 KERI on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. Your host is Clay Koerner, and I'm Marty Pay, and behind the big board we've got our producer, Greg Held. Clay, that was a fantastic show last week with Michael Reagan and Mick Gleason.
Yeah, now we go we go to fact now. We're going to go from fantasy to fact.
Well, actually, we also go, let's see, Mick was a full-bird colonel. He was the commanding officer of China Lake, and we go up to a 3-star general. That's not a bad promotion for us.
We're doing pretty well.
Yes, we are. We've got an incredible show lined up today. Our second guest is Fox commentator and author Dick Morris, and he's talking about the presidential election and his new book called Screwed, which is an excellent book. I'm reading it right now. But before I introduce our first guest, I want to quote our second president, John Adams, who once wrote, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate for the government of any other." And then I want to quote my favorite Superior Court Justice, Joseph Story. He was a justice from 1812 to 1845. About the time you were born, Clay, you might have remembered him.
Yeah, I do.
But he once said, "I believe Christianity is necessary for the support of civil society. One of the beautiful boasts of our municipal jurisprudence is that Christianity is a part of the common law. There never has been a period in which the common law did not recognize Christianity as lying at its foundation." That belief is being questioned today by Shariah law in America, and we are honored to have as our guest to talk about this General Jerry Boykin. General Boykin, welcome to Taking Care of Business.
Well, thanks, guys. I am just delighted to be with you.
Well, and listen, I'm glad that you and Clay had your fun at my expense, being an ex-Marine, as you gentlemen are Army, and I appreciate you guys doing that off the air. That was nice of you.
Well, who said we were going to keep it off the air?
Listen, we have a great passion for the Marine Corps. Somebody has to come along and clean up behind the Navy and the Air Force. And the Army is tired of doing that.
Well, you're going to be here in town on July 2nd at Canyon Hills Church, and we're going to plug this a couple times in the next 22 minutes. If anybody is interested, and I highly recommend you show up at this. This is going to be a great event at Canyon Hills Church, and the phone number to call is 1-800-965-9324. I highly recommend it. So, our current president, General Boykin, said that we were no longer a Christian nation if we ever were. What do you think about that?
Well, it's kind of interesting that he is, I think, reflecting an attitude that is not represented by the history of this nation. I think there's unquestionable evidence that not only were the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence men of the Christian faith, they were not deists, they were not atheists, as some have tried to say in modern history. They were men of faith, and more importantly, if you look at what they said, what they wrote, if you look at all the documents that are available, they were very clearly Christians who were founding this nation on Judeo-Christian principles, and who believed for the first time and really in history that our rights were inalienable, meaning they didn't come from a king or any other wealthy elite. They came from God. And it was clearly a Judeo-Christian base upon which they built America.
You know, you talked about, in your book, I've been reading your book, it's Shariah, The Threat to America. A very interesting book, but a little bit heavy for me, I have to say. What is the threat to America under Shariah?
Well, first of all, you have to understand that Islam, when practiced authoritatively, Islam is only about 16% religion. The rest of Islam is a legal system called Sharia, a financial system called Sharia-compliant finance, a moral code, a geopolitical system called the Caliphate. And Sharia, being the ultimate objective of Islam, and that is the implementation of global Sharia in this geopolitical arena called the Caliphate. And every committed, dedicated, authoritative Muslim is determined to establish Sharia wherever they are, and that certainly includes America, and we can get into more of the details of that. But the sad thing is, guys, that they are making a great progress in bringing Sharia into America.
We're having a conversation with three-star General Jerry Boykin.
I think, isn't there a city in Michigan that is almost 100% Muslim and operating under Sharia law now?
Well, Dearborn, Michigan, yes. Dearborn, in fact, I've been there a couple of times recently, and if you walk down the streets, you would think you were in Beirut or Damascus or someplace. Now, let me say this up front, and I hope that all of your listeners hear this very clearly. There are Muslims in America who reject Sharia. In fact, many of them came to America to get away from Sharia. They didn't want to live under the brutality of Sharia. The problem is the voice for the Muslims in America today is the Muslim Brotherhood and all its front groups like the Council of American Islamic Relations and the Islamic Society of North America and a plethora of other Islamic front groups which are fronts for the Muslim Brotherhood. Their sole objective in America is to establish Sharia. And our government doesn't reach out to the Muslims who reject Sharia. They reach out to these groups that were identified in 2004 in the Holy Land Foundation trial as fronts for the Muslim Brotherhood. That's who we reach out to. And their objective is truly to destroy our Constitution, to replace it with Sharia, and they are having unbelievable success in doing that. And let me just say, before we go to the next point, that in a study that was done by the Center for Security Policy last year, they looked at court cases in the state appellate courts across the country and found that in 23 states and 27 court cases, judges admitted that they use Sharia to adjudicate those cases. And there are pro-Sharia groups that on their websites, they now say that they've had maybe as many as 170 court cases in America in which judges have used Sharia. It is not coming to America. It's in America.
Isn't there a movement now, like in Kansas just recently, they outlawed Sharia laws. So is there a pushback movement starting now?
All the Muslim Brotherhood is teamed with the ACLU and other liberal groups to stop this legislation that has been passed in 4 states, Kansas being the last one. It's called American Laws for American Courts. It's not just a anti-Sharia legislation in these state legislators. It is about any foreign law or any religious law. And yes, Kansas passed it. Governor Brownback signed it. And there are probably at least 16 other states that are working on the same thing. Now, in a couple of states, they've gotten right up to the finish line on this and then pulled it and wouldn't even vote on it. Florida is one, Texas is another. And the reason is because CARE and ISNA pulled out all stops, poured a ton of money in, partnered with the ACLU, and really put enough pressure on some of the middle-of-the-road legislators that they scared them off from this vote. They are in a full court press to stop this legislation.
It's incredible. I mean, it's just amazing. You got the Muslim Brotherhood and the ACLU. What a combination that is. Now, with your background, I mean, you were the commander of Special Operations Command. You've seen special ops and covert ops. Does this seem like a covert ops operation to you almost, the way they're trying to infiltrate our government?
Yeah, it is. First of all, let me correct. I commanded all the Green Berets in the military. This is very much a covert operation, but what's funny about this is in 2004, we actually discovered their game plan. We discovered it in Annandale, Virginia, when one of the operations officers for the Muslim Brotherhood was arrested when he and his wife were videoing the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. They stopped him, picked him up, and discovered that he was wanted in Illinois on a material warrant, a material witness warrant. And they went to his home and discovered a false basement. And inside that false basement, they discovered the archives for the Muslim Brotherhood. And in those archives was a 5-phase plan, as well as what they called an explanatory memorandum. And they lay out in there exactly how they intend to take over America. Now, when you read that, and you see it in that book you just referenced, Shariah, The Threat to America. I think it's on about page 126 or 127. But they lay out the 5-phase plan. And the problem is the FBI has had that since 2004. They are executing that plan just as they laid it out, and we are doing absolutely nothing but probably actually assisting them in doing exactly what they said in the memorandum that they were going to do.
General, when we come back, excuse me, when we come back from the break, I want to ask you why we're not doing anything about it, okay?
Okay.
We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180.